Alrighty, folks, today we are going to be talking about something that I would like to call the binge eating triad. Now, that is not a scientific term, that is a term that I came up with to highlight the various aspects of binge eating and how they impact your behavior. So, if you are interested in that or any of the other mental aspects of fitness and bodybuilding in general, check out the rest of my videos on the channel. Also, if you played the original Golden Sun games on Game Boy Advance, I am currently playing through those again. So, if you do enjoy those games, hit the subscribe button. Let's get to the video. Alrighty, so first we're going to need to talk about what binge eating is. Binge eating involves consuming an unusually large amount of food in a short period of time. And this is often accompanied by feelings of losing control or being out of control of what you're doing. Now, during this period, you're going to be eating faster, you're going to be eating past the point of feeling full, and there might be some accompanying guilt, shame, and blame associated with what you are doing. Now, this is not a substitute for mental health treatment, so please see your local provider should you need that. But we want to distinguish that this is just general binge eating, and there's not going to be any subsequent sort of compensatory behaviors. We're not going to dive into sort of excessive exercise practices around this, although that is sort of something that you'll see in certain people and populations. And then there's also no compensatory mechanisms in terms of purging. So we're not talking about that. We're just talking about the binge eating aspect. So what is my binge eating triad? So the first part of the triad. Number one, hunger dysregulation. So what is hunger dysregulation? That's just a fancy way of saying that we are not eating in a pattern that is going to sustain our satiety throughout the day. Now, this could be due to multiple factors. We might have poor habits in place. We might have jobs that sort of not allow us to have sort of regular feeding schedules, or we might just not feel hungry in the mornings, which then sort of perpetuates this sort of irregular sort of eating pattern. Now, this isn't always going to be a negative thing. However, I feel like having an irregular pattern of eating one meal a day, only eating 2 meals a day, not having a sort of regular schedule can sort of throw you off and lead to some binge eating behaviors. That's number one, sort of this hunger dysregulation. And if you just want to sort of envision a dam, like if you skip breakfast and you manage to not have lunch or something like that, and you do that on a regular basis, like at night, that dam might break and just sort of the floodgates of calories might come on, and you might sort of begin sort of excessively binge eating. So you have hunger regulation at 1, emotional regulation at number 2. So we all have our coping mechanisms for stress, anxiety, low mood, worry, anything like that. And for some people, for a lot of people, for myself in the past, food has been a coping mechanism. And if we are not careful, food, especially carbohydrates, food rich in carbohydrates, are a way that we can sort of tame a lot of those feelings. So food can help sort of engage our parasympathetic nervous system and bring down some of the effects that excessive worry or other distress can cause. And so it is a, somewhat powerful thing that we can easily adopt as a coping skill. Now, if we have adopted that as a coping skill, at times of high stress, that may lead to binge eating. If we have adopted, it's a stressful day, I'm going to have a pint of ice cream, or like I have a pint of ice cream or something like that. If it is an exceptionally stressful day at work, we may sort of dive into a whole pint of ice cream along with some other foods and sort of go into this phase where we binge eat to cope with these powerful emotions. Now, the number 3 thing in sort of the binge eating triad is just sort of conditioned habits. So this is sort of adjacent and related to sort of hunger dysregulation and emotional regulation, but conditioned habits is more tied to the situational factors that we have in our lives. So for some, binge eating is going to be tied to particular times, places, peoples, things that we do. For example, if you wind down in the evenings by watching TV and perhaps you break out just like a bag of chips and you begin watching your show, whether that's, I don't know, what's a good show? Like Breaking Bad? I still haven't watched Breaking Bad. I know that's bad. That's a long time. I still have, what do I have over here? I still have all of the Game of Thrones. I heard the last season wasn't so great. Anyways, backing up. So we have these particular settings, like let's say at night we sit and we watch TV, and if we associate those times with eating particular foods, popcorn, chips, candy, whatever it is, that can lead to maybe not necessarily binge eating, but overeating in general, because we are engaging with our food sort of mindlessly. We're focused on a show, or we're focused on a YouTube video or something like that, and we're not paying attention to actually how much we eat. And by the time we start the show, open the bag of chips, we are halfway through the show or almost all the way through the show, and then the entire bag of chips is gone. gone and we don't know where it went. So is that necessarily binge eating per se? No, but there are certain aspects of it that are going to lead to excess calorie intake that can be associated with some binge eating. So how are these things even related? So your hunger dysregulation is going to make you sort of physically vulnerable to binge eating. Then emotional eating is going to turn food into a reward and coping mechanism, and these sort of conditioned habits are going to make binge eating sort of automatic and be triggered by things in your environment. So you have this combination of sort of physical vulnerability along with if you have developed coping mechanisms for strong emotions, and then you have sort of these habitual cues, and they all sort of work synergistically to make you vulnerable to intaking more calories than you would have liked. And then after the binge eating, that might come with some more subsequent feelings of shame, blame, and guilt. So you have all that working together, and that kind of sucks. So what can we do about it? Step number 1, dealing with hunger dysregulation, physical hunger cues. You are going to want to eat multiple meals throughout the day. 3 or more is generally good. 3 to 6 is probably the sweet spot. Anything more than 6, probably not detrimental, just tedious. So find a sweet spot, 3 to 6 range. If you have a difficult time getting things in at work, I would highly recommend prepping shakes, prepping bars, prepping anything easy that you can sort of carry along and take with you at work. But just having regularly scheduled meals is going to do a lot to sort of stave off those physical hunger cues. So regularly scheduled meals, 3 to 6 range. Now, for all you bodybuilders and fitness enthusiasts out there, step number 2 is going to be to develop other coping mechanisms that are going to help you deal with emotions. Now, for most of us, that is probably going to be the weightlifting and training. However, there are going to be times when we can't train, so adopting other coping skills, journaling, practicing mindfulness, doing just some general deep breathing, and then honestly, the first step for most people, honestly, most dudes that I talk to, is just being able to identify the thing that you're feeling in the first place. You would not believe how much of an impact noticing your thoughts, noticing and naming your feelings just sort of out loud can help to create some distance from you and those negative actions, in this case, binge eating. So you've got your hunger dysregulation, you've got your emotional dysregulation, coping skills that you need to develop, whether that's journaling to deal with these strong emotions, whether that is improving your communication skills with your partner or your friends, whether that's mindfulness meditation, or whether that is just noticing, naming, and making room for some of these feelings. Those are some great things to try out to sort of deal with the emotional side of things. Lastly, how do we deal with these conditioned habits? Number 1, you are going to want to look at the sort of antecedents, behaviors, and consequences. So what are the antecedents? What are the situational factors that lead up to the particular behaviors of binge eating? So in your environment, if it is just the ritual of sitting down for TV, perhaps changing up the snack that you eat, perhaps it is changing the evening activity at all. Perhaps it's using some other thing while you are engaging in the activity that you enjoy at night, as opposed to the particular foods that are going to add to your sort of excess calories. Now, you can look to modify sort of any aspect of the situation, but you want to begin modifying the situation because more often than not, emotions and habits are triggered by the situations we find ourselves in. It's not a coincidence that if we want to begin an exercise habit, that we would sort of change the environment around us first to facilitate those goals. Similarly, if we want to stop a particular behavior, we want to look at our environment first and begin modifying those variables. Alrighty, folks, that is it for today's episode. So hopefully some of these tips can help you sort of break the chain on some of these binge eating behaviors. And if you are really, truly struggling, I hope you will go see your local mental health providers. And if you are looking to develop some other mental skills, got a lot of other videos on here. Hopefully you'll check those out. Hopefully you'll find those helpful. And until next time, hope you all have a great week, and I'll see you in the next video.